Where is she? What happened? When will we find her? Those are the questions that everyone else in Sariah Hildebrand's life.
Kevin Litchwick entered court claiming he was too sick to stand trial. Before proceedings could even begin, he accused the court of violating his rights, said deputies dragged him from his cell, and insisted he needed to lie down and rest.
Was asking. Except for the defendant, Sariah Hildebrand, as he already knew all those answers. On Sunday, August 5th, 2023, Sariah had planned some events and presents as it was the defendant's 21st birthday. She had planned for some friends to go out. A few came over. She made him a present in the form of a beer cake, and she was excited to celebrate him. One of those friends that came over was Marie Wentz, to their apartment at 5210 Mockingbird Drive, Unit 13. Marie had become friends with Sariah since she moved to Alaska. They were inseparable, texting constantly. They were together that day. That morning, they had gone to the gym, as they frequently did, and then ran some errands in preparation for his birthday. Later that evening, the group went to Dave & Buster's. They were winning prizes and playing games and having a good time. Sariah was extremely excited to win a Pickle Rick plushie. She was texting her mom about it. She was even Googling how to win the most points at Dave & Buster's. And she did win it. And she took a photo with her husband to celebrate that. After Dave & Buster's, they left. At Dave & Buster's, there was a much larger group. And then some of them went downtown. The people that went downtown are Logan Calhoun and Zachary Farrar, who were friends with the defendant, as well as Marie Wentz and her friend, Isaac Mulholland, who were friends more so with Sariah. They went out to Willowa. They were dancing and having a good time, drinking, taking photos, celebrating, as they should have. At one point in the night, they decided to walk to Gaslight. One of the defendant's friends, Logan, was a little nervous to walk downtown. Everybody was kind of giving him grief for that, making fun of him. When they got to Gaslight, the defendant was declined entry. He was a little bummed, but eventually Sariah ordered them an Uber home, where she took the defendant, Marie and Isaac, back to 5210 Mockingbird Drive. Marie and Isaac went their separate way in the parking lot, as Sariah walked inside with the defendant, helping him along, but he was walking fine. They get inside alone, and that was the last time Sariah Hildebrand was ever seen alive. In that apartment that night, it was the two of them. According to the defendant, at one point, they'd gone inside. She probably took the dogs out. They were even giving each other grief back and forth, making fun of each other before they fell asleep. However, between 2:12 and 2:24 a.m. that day, Sariah found evidence of the defendant cheating on her on Snapchat and Instagram, sending photos to girls, offering to fly them out to Alaska, getting photos from them, sending plenty, even offering to kiss and make it better. The last photo that we see on Sariah's phone that night was at 2:24.
The judge listened, but reminded Litchwick that the trial had already been delayed and that previous hearings had addressed his medical complaints. Court officials stated he had refused to leave his cell earlier that morning, causing a significant delay.
After that, at 2:40, Marie got a call from Sariah's phone. Unfortunately, she had been home for a while. She didn't see it. It went unanswered. Just 8 minutes later, at 2:48 a.m., 911 got a call from Taylor Engstrom, a neighbor in the apartment just across the courtyard. He calls in and says, about 30 seconds ago, there was a gunshot. It sounded just outside my window. It was very loud. I don't know where it came from, but he called it in. Sariah Hildebrand was shot in the head that night, just above her left temple, and that ended her life. In those early morning hours, officers did respond to that 911 call, but without knowing directly where it's from. They didn't have the opportunity to contact the defendant that night. The next morning, early morning hours of Sunday, August 6th, around 9:10, no one heard from Sariah. No messages, no one heard from her. Marie Wentz eventually sent a message, I believe a Snapchat, asking how Sariah and the defendant were feeling. She got a response from Sariah's phone, but it wasn't from Sariah. That response was from the defendant, sending a thumbs up that he felt fine. Marie asked if they would want to go to lunch and get some food, probably to help with some of the feelings they were having that morning. The defendant said, "No, we can't go, we don't want to go." Sariah already left and walked to work at 10 that day. Marie found that a little odd, considering the defendant said Sariah forgot her phone. Sariah was always on her phone. 21-year-old on Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, texting, all of the above. However, she didn't push it. She also found it odd because the night before, Sariah had said she intended on calling out. So she didn't expect Sariah to go to work, let alone to walk. But she understood the defendant had her phone and that she would hear from her friend later. At least she hoped. But she didn't. Throughout Sunday, August 6th, Marie wasn't the only one to get messages from Sariah's phone. Nadia Jones was Sariah's manager at Bread and Brew. At 10:44 a.m., she got a text. "Hey, this is Sariah. Can't make it in today, giving an excuse." Nadia took that at face value, and no one else heard from Sariah's phone that day. Marie had reached out a few times between the end of Sunday, sending DMs or funny videos, asking, "Where are you? Why haven't you talked to me?" Because this was the longest they had gone in their friendship without talking, so she found it very odd. But Monday, August 7th came. The defendant went to work. You heard from one of his friends that he works with on base at the Army that he seemed a little off. So he asked, "Is everything okay?" He said, "Yeah, just stuff going on. I'll talk to you about it later." That's it. Then about midday, early afternoon, Marie gets a call from Sariah's phone again. It's Mr. Hildebrand. He says, "Hey, Sariah's been missing since 10 a.m. yesterday." Marie goes, "What do you mean?" "Well, it's been 30 hours. She doesn't have her phone." She immediately gets concerned. She tells him, "I'll come over as soon as I can right after work," but she was stuck there for a few more hours. And she did go straight over. She asked, "Have you reported her missing? Where could she be?" She's so concerned for her friend because she's been missing for so long and she doesn't have her phone and she didn't hear from her. Once Marie was with the defendant, that's when calls started being made to hospitals, jails, and even to 911, which hadn't been done yet. Marie made that call.
Hey, Dispatch. Hi, I think my friend is missing. Okay. And why do you think she's missing, or either she's missing? I haven't spoken to her in 2 days, and her husband hasn't heard from her in over a day, like 30 hours now.
And you'll hear the entirety of that call. He was there, and Marie put it on speaker so he could answer questions that she didn't know. But Marie made that call at 5:34 p.m. While they waited for an APD officer to arrive, they started searching. The apartments at 5210 Mockingbird are at the bottom of your screen. Up in the top right on Tudor is where Sariah worked at Bread and Brew. So they started searching that area. Where could she be? Walking around through the woods, getting muddy. During that time, Marie was searching. She had called 911. The defendant's with her, and they're waiting on APD. where he has to call a few more times to update APD where they are, when they're coming. That's not the only call that was made to inform Sariah missing. Meredith Barney, Sariah's mother.
Litchwick argued that ongoing health problems, exhaustion, and jail conditions made it impossible for him to participate. He repeatedly told the judge he was not well enough to continue and felt that nobody was listening to his concerns.
Got a call in Utah at 7:44 p.m. Alaska time, almost 10 p.m. her time, from the defendant, Sariah Hildebrand. Hey, Sariah's missing. Has been for over 33 hours. He told that same scripted story. Left for work at 10 a.m. on Sunday. Didn't take her phone. Haven't heard from her. Meredith immediately jumped on a plane. She's coming to find her daughter. On the plane, she's coordinating with her family to make a missing poster, to try to find Sariah, to even figure out if she can track a phone, all of those things. But she didn't find her that day. One other thing on Monday, August 7th, is APD Officer Zhang did respond. And he asked the defendant many questions. Has Sariah ever gone missing before? No. We get that same scripted answer. Left at 10 a.m. to walk to work. Didn't have her phone. Haven't seen her. Don't know what happened. He asks, has she ever had suicidal tendencies or something that could explain this? He says, no, not at all. I don't know where she is. She was wearing all black when she went to work. Black graphic tee. Don't know where. Forgot her phone. She's gone. Later that evening, one of Marie and the defendant's mutual friends, Dalen Gates, came over. Dalen worked in the Army with the defendant, and he knew Marie through other mutual friends. Marie at that point was covered in mud. It was late in the evening. She had to go let her dog out. So she briefly crossed paths with Dalen. But Dalen was the one who went inside and spent time with him to check on his friend. He was concerned for him. He made him dinner. And then he watched as Sariah Hildebrand cried. I think it was ugly cried. And said, I'm blaming myself. It's all my fault. But then I should have driven her to work that morning. Crying as his friends try and console him, thinking his wife is missing. Tuesday, August 8th. Defendant goes to work again. At this point, his chain of command in the Army is now made aware of what's going on. Also, Sariah was in the military in the National Guard, so her chain of command has been involved. The Army Criminal Investigation Division, called CID, which is fancy military police, was also investigating this case for the missing person. They started coordinating with APD, doing their own investigation. Then Meredith arrives. Her plane lands. She goes straight to Anchorage Police Department headquarters. Straight there, goes to the front desk. Where is my daughter? What are we doing to find her? What have you found out? Who was with her at headquarters? Her sister, who had flown hundreds of miles to be there to ask that same question. Who wasn't? The defendant. He said, I can't find my wallet, so I don't have my driver's license, so I'm gonna sit this one out. So he didn't go. When Meredith went to headquarters, that's when Detective Troy Clark and other members of the Anchorage Homicide Unit were assigned, as the Homicide Unit also investigates missing persons. Him and other detectives began their investigation. They reviewed the 911 call from Murray. They reviewed the statement to Officer Zhang. They coordinated with CID, trying to catch up on what's going on. And then, that evening, they went to 5210 Mockingbird Drive. They coordinated with the Army, who sent his entire battalion, over 70 soldiers, to do a search of that area, trying to find Sariah. They didn't find her that day. When Detective Clark, and with him Detective Jeff Elby, went to unit number 13, or just outside the apartment building, they went with Sariah Hildebrand, the defendant, to his apartment that he shared with Sariah. He let them in. He talked to them. He gave that same scripted story. Left for work at 10 a.m. forgot her phone, don't know what happened. He told them, I was home all Sunday, just vegetating, kind of recovering. Didn't leave the house. So they start asking him, okay, what happened Sunday morning? He says they woke up at 8:30 or 9 after sleeping in the same bed together, and that she at 10 o'clock went to work. 10 o'clock, walked to work, which was her first time doing that, as she had never walked before. He explained that they may have still been a little buzzed, so she was hesitant about driving. However, when he was asked...
In response, the judge laid out several options. Litchwick could take additional time to prepare, remain in court in jail clothing, participate remotely from a holding room, or risk removal if he became disruptive. Regardless of the choice, the judge made it clear that the trial would move forward.
What time she was expected home. He said 7 p.m. on Sunday, August 6th. He didn't see her at 7 p.m. So he decided to wait, according to what he told detectives, until 9 p.m. to make sure she wasn't lost or something. And then he said that he went out searching, drove in the parking lot of Bread and Brew, looked all over. And we'll get to what he did that day and evening in a moment. When asked, why did you wait so long? Over 30 hours to report her missing, he said, I didn't know if it was serious. I didn't want to waste anybody's time. When Detective Clark asked, where do you think we're going to find Sariah? He paused, hesitated, took a breath. You'll hear many of those statements. He says, I think she'll be within a 2 to 3 mile radius of here. We'll later find out that was correct. While officers were speaking with him, Detective Clark and Detective Elby, they were looking around the apartment when they were in the living room with him. They saw a set of brand new sheets on the table. They asked him about it. He said, I didn't buy those. I've never even been at the sheet aisle in Fred Meyer. She must have bought them when I was on field training the week before. Okay. Officers ask if they can take a look around the apartment, just make sure she's not there in one of the rooms they can't see. He allows them. He says, go ahead, take a look. Officers do. They don't find Sariah. At one point, they notice that on his bed that he shared with Sariah is a mattress pad, like a mattress topper cover. And they ask, hey, why don't you have sheets on the bed? He says, I do. They're under the mattress topper. Detectives go, why would you put them under the mattress topper? He says, oh, we got the mattress from someone crummy, that's why. Here, I'll show you. And he lifts the edge of the mattress topper, showing the sheets. However, when he does that, detectives can see that there's a space under the bed. There's not a box spring. They ask, hey, can we take a look under there? Mr. Hildebrand gives an alternative offer. I have embarrassing stuff under there. It's inappropriate. Detectives just point out they want to make sure she's not under there. He says, no, she's not. She wouldn't fit. Detectives accept that answer at that time and leave. But before they did, they asked a few more questions, including, hey, you have her phone right now. We just saw her mom grab it with her laptop. Can you explain to me how, if she left at 10 a.m. on Sunday, how did Nadia Jones get a text at 10:44 if you had her phone? I don't have an explanation for that, sir. That was his response. I don't have an explanation for that. That night, or in that evening, the defendant also stopped by her work for the first time. Went inside on Tuesday, August 8th. One of the employees he had contact with was Kaylani Thompson. She wasn't super close with Sariah, but worked with her. Knew her fairly well. Knew that she had gone out on Saturday. Wasn't shocked that she didn't come in on Sunday. But when he came in, Kaylani will tell you about how weird his vibe was. He was nervous, kept scratching, wouldn't look her in the eye, looked anywhere else. So she thought that was odd, and she started asking him questions. He wouldn't answer. She was told by some people, don't push him. His wife's missing. However, when she saw the defendant outside with some of that Army search crew that we talked about, he was laughing and smiling and joking around. I think she described it as they were hee-hee-ha-haing, which she found very concerning because Sariah's missing. But that's what the defendant did. Now, Wednesday, August 9th. Throughout this investigation, actually, I want to back up to one more point. When he spoke to detectives on the 8th, originally he said I was home vegetating all day. When they said, hey, we'll check cameras, is there anything else? He goes, oh, actually, I ran some errands. I went to Fred Meyer's and got stuff for guacamole salsa, and I also went to Brown Jug. So he changed that from being home all day. Now, on to August 9th, August 9th, the Wednesday. Police at that point had applied for and been granted a search warrant to search 5210 Mockingbird Drive, Unit 13, for evidence of what happened to Sariah. Originally, on the surface, just as they were there wasn't anything obviously out of the concern. Pickle Rick made it back on the bed. But when they began to look more closely, they were able to start seeing reddish-brown stains. When they began to look more closely, they could see those reddish-brown stains, multiple places all over the apartment. And that's what they saw when they lifted the bed. Not embarrassing sex stuff, but a mattress so soaked through it with blood that when it was flipped, the framing it was on actually imprinted into the blood. They also observed mop buckets, disinfecting wipes, multiple things throughout the apartment. There'll be ample evidence as to what crime scene found in his apartment. Another thing they found is in the living room, in between the couch cushions, tan Sig Sauer handgun tucked in between the things. Just near there on a table, they found letters authored by the defendant, where he says, I don't know where you are. I hope you're found alive. If not, if she's found alive or dead, please bury her with me. But one thing he says is, I loved her, in the past tense. Sariah's still missing. He also drafts one to APD. For all the people working the case, I'm sorry the information I gave you wasn't the best. Signed, Sariah Hildebrand. Please continue their investigation into Thursday, August 10th. On Thursday, August 10th, they're again searching that area between her apartment and Bread and Brew. And you'll see on maps and photos throughout this trial that there's a frontage road, less than 100 yards, maybe a couple hundred yards from the apartment building. As they're searching, they end up finding a trash can, 96-gallon toter trash can with wheels. Sticker's still on it. Here's brand new. As there was a landscaping crew that had been contracted by Parks and Rec, and they had been cleaning the area, and they found it and had put it in their truck. May have been a little excited to get a brand new trash can.
Despite multiple opportunities to cooperate, Litchwick continued insisting that he needed to return to his cell and rest. He refused to gather his trial materials, claimed he was unable to focus, and maintained that he was not fit to defend himself that day.
The officers in the area saw it and said, wait, because it was relevant to the case. And they looked in that trash can. There was red-brown staining. There was organic material. And they did a full crime scene analysis on this trash can, using forensic techniques, photographs, and other things you'll hear throughout this trial. The next thing they found was just a couple hundred yards, less than a quarter mile from that apartment, 5210 Mockingbird, on that same frontage road, in that same area as the trash can. We found the storm drain.
Counsel, could you approach, please?
They found this storm drain. When Officer Muma and Detective C were doing drone and searches in the area, they saw this. The cover was on. Shone a flashlight through the hole and they saw something down there. It's about 15 feet down with a culvert running side to side. This was the place that Sariah was found. This was the place where her body was found. With a bullet wound above her left eyebrow. She had been for likely days in that water. In there was a blanket, a pillow, a sheet, as well as some tan, military-looking gloves. Those were also in there with her. Throughout this case, you'll hear many pieces of evidence. Before I get there, I want to inform you of the counts against the defendant, as he's charged with count 1, murder in the first degree. You'll get ample instructions on this. However, to prove murder in the first degree, the state has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, which the state happily accepts that burden, that the defendant intended to cause the death of another person, being Sariah Hildebrand, and the defendant caused that death of any person. As to count 2, this is an alternate theory. So a different theory from count 1. It has an argument.
Can you approach, please?
As count 2, an alternate theory. The elements here are the defendant's conduct caused the death of another person. The defendant knowingly engages in that conduct, so a different mental state. And the defendant's conduct was performed under circumstances manifesting an extreme indifference to the value of human life. Extreme indifference to the value of human life means extreme recklessness. You'll be provided an instruction with the factors to consider for that. As to count 3 and 4, they're for tampering with physical evidence. Tampering with her body for one count, and tampering with the crime scene at 5210 Mockingbird Drive, Unit 13 for the other. Throughout this case, evidence will be shown to prove these beyond a reasonable doubt. Some of those will be on August 6th. He did go to Fred Meyer. However, there was no guacamole supplies when he went the first time at 12:26 p.m. He purchased Gatorade, marinara sauce, and brand new sheets. You'll watch video of him making that purchase. He put in his loyalty member number, points. He went again at 6:12, where he purchased hydrogen peroxide, other cleaning supplies, Q-tips. Then he went to Lowe's, 8 p.m. Bought a 96-gallon toter trash can. And then he went back to Fred Meyer when apparently he was in the Bread and Brew parking lot or searching the woods. But back to Fred Meyer and bought a new mattress pad and a Red Bull. All of this evidence will be presented in the coming weeks. Also found during the crime scene, carpet cleaner. A swab of that carpet cleaner was sent to the statewide crime detection laboratory. DNA analysis was performed by Dr. Emily Matthews on this, as well as other items in this case. The swab of that matched the DNA of Sariah Hildebrand. We also found that hydrogen peroxide and many other signs and evidence of cleaning up. We'll hear about the forensic techniques used, the evidence brought, and how they collected it. Some other experts you'll hear in this case besides Dr. Matthews and the DNA. She's an expert in forensic biological analysis. You'll hear from Melanie Wright, who did prints in this case, and the evidence she looked at, the processes she went through, and her findings. You'll hear from firearms expert Samantha Castle. who tested target to distance, and her ultimate finding was that it was unlikely the evidence of stippling and the evidence of the wound, as well as the make and model of the gun, would allow this to be suicide. That would be unlikely. You also hear that Samantha Castle tested that gun. She fired a test round and had the stippling and rifling that she can compare. She did compare that to what medical examiner Dr. Kenneth Gallagher found when he performed the autopsy on Sariah Hildebrand on Friday, August 11th, where he found multiple fragments of bullets left in her skull from the damage they had done. Samantha Castle was able to match one of those fragments with certainty and one with a little less certainty. They came from that gun. The less certainty was due to the size of the fragments, but the biggest fragment matched. You'll hear from many witnesses in this case. You'll hear from Meredith Barney, what happened when she spoke with the defendant. You'll hear from Marie Wentz about how it went that night and what she found. And when the defendant asked her before Sariah's body was found, what property should I give to her family? I was thinking her baby blanket from her childhood and her wedding ring. Sariah hadn't been found yet. That was on Wednesday, or Thursday at the latest. You'll hear from patrol officers who helped investigate this case and how evidence was collected, presented, and sent to the lab. And you'll hear from many detectives who worked with Detective Clark on their ample interviews with Sariah Hildebrand and the inconsistencies they found. And you'll even hear Mr. Hildebrand tell his mom, after he was arrested in this case, "I've tangled myself in lies, probably can't be undone." For all of those reasons, after evidence is presented in the coming weeks, the state will be before you in closing. Apply those factors to the elements that I've put up, showing how the defendant is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of murder in the first degree, murder in the second degree, and tampering with physical evidence. We will ask you to find him guilty at that time. Thank you.
After repeated exchanges, the judge decided the proceedings would continue. Jurors would be brought in, security measures would remain in place, and Litchwick would be allowed to participate if he chose. The tense standoff ended with the court preparing to resume the trial despite his objections.